opinion on this, but I said, you know, I don't want to have you back on because I just had you last night, only because I just don't want to exhaust you. You're a great guest, of course. But you had such strong opinions that I did want to have you back on this show despite that. So tell us, you know, most people will say, and we had Jimmy LaSalvia, a former Go Proud leader, he on my Facebook page said something about, you know, hey, I don't have a problem if it's a private agency doing this, but this is government agencies saying that you can opt out of these adoptions for on the basis of religious freedom. And he says, because of separation of church and state, which I know you're going to take on here in 1 second, and I would too, he says because of the separation of church and state, taxpayer-funded adoption agencies shouldn't be able to opt out for religious reasons. What say you, Thomas?
Well, at what point do we stop with this? You know, they use the separation of church and state argument all the time, and the separation of church and state is nowhere to be found in the Constitution, and that phrase comes from protection for the church from the state, not the other way around. But this is so much more than a religious matter. This is common sense.
Wait, let me stop you. Just for those who don't understand the issue, there is no such thing as the separation of church and state as we see it used and thrown around all the time, because it is only about the church's freedom from government intervention, not about the government not having church involved. Otherwise, we wouldn't have "In God We Trust" written all over the place. That's your point about the unconstitutionality of that argument. Go ahead, Thomas.
It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that children need a mommy and a daddy. We all know it's Adam and Eve. It isn't Adam and Steve. You can look at nature and see the parenting skills. And, you know, the raising of children is a serious, holy thing that begins with the holy covenant of marriage between one man and one woman. And raising children is a covenant that should be kept for the best interest of the child. And the best interest of the child is very different from the best interest of having the latest fashion accessory for spring 2015, like most gay men who are adopting gaybies right now. I was just up in Runyon Canyon a couple weeks ago, and I saw a gay couple who had just adopted two gaybies, two black gaybies, and they had dressed them in matching patent leather fireman outfits, complete with red thigh-high patent leather fireman boots, yellow patent leather fireman jackets, and matching little fireman hats. They're treating them as accessories. Sally Cohen, that mean lesbian on Fox News, or maybe she's on CNN now, she's actually said that she's intentionally trying to raise her children to be gay. That is not in the best interest of the child. And Sally Cohen, you know...
Because we're glossing over a lot here, and I really want you to stop and explain yourself, because I know you back yourself up in data, but I mean, most people would say, Thomas, you know, those two little boys dressed in the little fireman's outfits, I mean, aren't they better off like that than in an orphanage? That would be a logical question to ask.
Perhaps they are better than going to an orphanage, but you just don't know. During the developmental years of the child, in like the first 33 months, you know, the child comes to a point where it's called separation individuation, and that's when they begin to express themselves as an individual and to self-identify away from the parent. And, you know, most gay relationships do not last very long, and so for a gay relationship, and it gets interrupted during the formative years of a child, that's bad news, and they're going to end up on the therapist couch years later because they didn't properly deal with their separation individuation.
Okay, so what are the statistics, if you happen to know, of the, you know, I mean, most marriages don't last today, Thomas. That's the unfortunate reality, traditional or gay, doesn't really matter. Most relationships don't last today. So a lot of people would argue, what's the difference?
Well, the difference is that we're talking about two men or two women raising children together, and children need the dynamics of a man. They need the dynamics of a woman. It balances it out. I mean, look at the electricity outlet on your wall, for goodness sake. That's male and female. Look at nature. And I don't want to hear the crap about the gay penguins, and you know, but actually that's a good opportunity to expose the way that the LGBT and the Democrats inflate the gay percentages, because the gay penguin argument they like to make about nature, actually reflects the same as the homosexual percentages in regular population. And it is so tiny. Remember we talked about this last night, 2%. And so it's natural. You need a mom.
But if they're inflating those numbers, Thomas, explain to us how they're inflating those, because that's something really important. If you believe that, I just want to hear you back that up.
This is how they do it. They're basing those numbers on the question, have you ever had a homosexual relationship? Instead of just straight up asking, are you a homosexual? Do you, for example, do you cohabitate with a member of the same sex? Are you in a committed relationship with a member of the same sex? They're using numbers from the question, have you ever had a homosexual relationship? And that could go back to childhood, you know, playing doctor with your friends. So that's how they get away with that lie. We're talking about such a tiny, tiny percentage of the country who should never be discriminated against, should have the same rights as all people, but we should not kowtow and coddle. And like you were saying last night, it is patronizing to say, oh, the poor little gay people, they can't take care of themselves, but big government can. You know, that's not the answer, to bow and to kowtow to these small special interest groups of victims. And the LGBT under current leadership is perpetuating this mentality of victimhood. And, you know, being gay is the least interesting thing about a person. You know, and again, as a member of a protected class, anyone who disagrees with me is a bigot. Period.
Oh, Thomas, I hate to leave it there because you're always so entertaining, but I do appreciate you so much joining us again tonight. We thank you, and your perspective on this is certainly enlightening and something I bet a lot of people didn't know, because I certainly didn't. Thanks again, Thomas. Don't forget, we want to hear from you too. Go to you2america.com, and right there you can join in the discussion. You can vote on our daily poll question, send us a video or a text, and we'll do our best to get them on the air. And remember, when you post on social media, use the hashtag AmericaTrends. And we have, speaking of trending, which we talked